Day 14 of this conflict, Mr. Secretary, day 14, nearly 5 months ago, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. That was on day 14 of the war. Was that an accurate statement?
They didn't have a Navy any longer. It was completely sunk. Their missiles were buried underneath a lot of their underground facilities, and their defense industrial base has been almost completely destroyed. So as far as a military assessment of Iran's capabilities, it didn't mean by any stretch of the imagination absolute zero, but their capabilities at the lowest level they've been in a very long time.
On day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no?
Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14, Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no? Was that an accurate statement?
What the American military has done to the Iranian military is a historic military defeat,
answer the question under oath?
And they're ineffective in that context.
3 weeks later, you declared victory. That was now nearly 4 months ago. 3 weeks after you'd already said Iran's military was destroyed and combat ineffective, you said, quote, Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory. You said Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. And you stated we had, quote, achieved every single objective. Were those accurate statements?
It certainly was, on behalf of the men and women in uniform, a historic military victory over Iran.
Had Iran's military been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come? That was a statement that you made 4 months ago.
They had 160 naval vessels in the Blue Water Navy, and they're gone. Their Air Force is completely combat ineffective, and they don't have a defense industrial base. So describe to me a country that doesn't have an Air Force, a Navy, or a defense industrial base, and I will describe to you a country that does not have an effective military. It can lob missiles.
Mr. Secretary, you stated 4 months ago that Iran's military had been rendered, quote, combat ineffective for years to come. Has Iran's military been, for the last 4 months, combat ineffective?
It's been set back not just years, but likely decades.
You stated we had, quote,
build at the level it did before, and not even close. It doesn't mean it doesn't have capabilities.
Details about the U.S. troops killed in the fighting there. At least 17 Americans have died since the war started. This weekend, CENTCOM says one service member was killed in northern Iraq while trying to detonate a downed Iranian attack drone, and remains have been recovered in Jordan amid the search for a service member still missing after an Iranian attack that left 2 others dead. And just moments ago, the Pentagon identified those 2 soldiers who were killed in Jordan. First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, a 25-year-old from Hawaii, and Private Isabel Gonzalez, a 19-year-old from Texas. President Trump spoke about the losses.
Well, we feel very badly, but you know, those great people, those great patriots are out there fighting that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran has been very, very badly damaged. They've lost everything almost militarily.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from MeidasTouch and Valor Media Networks. You know, one of the major things that I learned in my 2+ decade career in the United States Navy and the United States military is integrity is everything. I happened to watch the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, give testimony in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee this past week. Now, I expect some back and forth sparring. I expect grandstanding at this point from the defense secretary. But man, in lieu of what has happened in the last week, to hear what I heard come out of his mouth was staggering. I've talked to people who are still in the service on active duty, and morale is low. But most importantly, trust is not there. They don't trust leadership. And I'm going to go down the reasons why based on his Senate testimony. So let's start with the cost. He came in front of the Senate talking about we need $37.5 billion to continue this conflict. And I use that word because when he came asking for more money for this war, he did not use the term war. And that projection is up from the $29 billion that he had asked for earlier at the beginning of this conflict. And when asked for reasons as to why this additional money is necessary, he dodged all answers. He could not give a solid, reputable answer for this cost increase that many defense industry experts believe is even a low estimate of what is actually needed based on the expenditure of ammunition and the rapid and consistent bombings that are now taking place day after day after day. Answers became so evasive that you saw, really for the first time, Republican members of Congress, Republican senators in particular, go after him. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana said to both him and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, "We need straight answers." We need straight answers, meaning Congress and the American people need to know what the heck we are doing, what is the strategy, and really how much it's going to cost. Hegseth, being the slippery political eel he is, would not commit to anything. He just wants basically an open blank check. And that led to the exchange that you saw at the beginning of this video. Senator John Ossoff from Georgia asking straightforward, deliberate, direct questions on what he claimed at the beginning of this conflict compared to what he said now. He basically said, you told us all of these forces in Iran were obliterated. And he kept repeating the fact that he said it only to be shown, hey, more casualties now, 19-year-old, 25-year-old. From a force that supposedly had been obliterated. It got so personal that Senator Peters from Michigan basically called him a failure as a defense secretary, and him and Hegseth went back and forth. And what Hegseth did that really pisses me off about him more than any other thing that he does, he hides himself behind the people he is supposed to lead. He will sit there and say, if you criticize me as a defense secretary, you're smearing the troops. You're going against the troops, which is the most cowardly way any leader would act, throwing your people in front of the bus that you are responsible for taking on. You want the pageantry, you want the reputation, you want the praise of being the one in charge. You love making 1980s action movie quotes because you're the one in charge. So when you're being held responsible for now over 17 American casualties with more, I'm sure, to come, you don't want to deal with the heat. As a matter of fact, you want to hide behind the same people that your actions are putting in harm's way. And if that wasn't enough, Republican Senator Susan Collins cited the report that Hegseth is blocking promotions, specifically women and people of color. And he's like, and she's like, that's a leadership credibility issue. Why is this happening? Once again, another terrible answer. He doesn't answer. He's making all of these unilateral decisions to the point where people on the outside who are paid a lot of money to analyze defense movements and defense actions have no logical answer outside of some ideological, twisted way of looking at military quality and leadership. And when you have 1, 2, 3, 4 Republicans asking hardcore questions about this defense secretary that they actually help confirm, that's when you know you have jumped the shark. But how does Hegseth even frame this whole argument? He said if Congress withholds the $1.5 trillion overall budget from the Department of Defense, then it is the greatest threat the United States has to deal with moving forward. The lack of funding for its military. Now, yes, that's very, narcissistic because it's all about him and his department, but it's not even remotely true. But most importantly, he cannot tell you what he's already done with basically the almost $1 trillion that they already have. No one in the world spends more money on its military than the United States. As a matter of fact, the next 6-7 defense budgets combined do not match what the United States spends on it. And what are we getting to show for it? We have 17 dead. We have 18 bases blown up. We have a Strait of Hormuz closed. And now we have the Red Sea also closed off. All because we have this person in charge who feels like he is above accountability, has crazy ideological ideas that he tries to push onto the force, but most importantly, cannot tell you why he's doing what he's doing and where is it going to lead.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.